Welcome. March 13, zoning board of appeals, town of Concord, public meeting. We have a two-part agenda tonight. First off, we have a few special permit cases. And then second, after a brief intermission, we have our second event of tonight, and that is continuation of the public hearing on the Thoreau Club for the comprehensive permit application. We have a full complement of board tonight: Thomas Swain, Stephen Nebold, Elizabeth Dwyer Leonard, I always have her name, and Ravi Fria, myself, Terry Clements. From the town, we have planning department, Elizabeth Hughes and Kim Johnson, and I see Paul as well. Our building inspector is also online. And later on for the 40B, we have a peer review consultant, Joe Pisnola, here as well. Let's start off with the first item of the night. Julie Pease and David Cocco, applicant owner for special permit on the zoning bylaw sections 6.2.13 and 11.6 to construct 201 square foot addition on the first floor and an 83.5 square foot addition on the second floor at the rear of the dwelling, which increases the gross floor area by 284.5 square feet, causing the maximum floor area ratio to be exceeded by 74.84 square feet at 1471 Main Street. Who is here to speak for the applicant?
You want me, Mr. Chair?
That's beautiful. Good to see you in person.
Good to see you in person. For the record, my name is Jonathan Silverstein. I'm counsel for the applicants who are here with me, as well as the project architect, Elise Stone. It's a pretty straightforward application. It's an old house. To sort of make it modern and usable, they looked at alternatives, and really the only thing they could do was put a small, modest addition on the back of the house, not visible from the street, visible from some of the abutting neighbors, none of whom, to my knowledge, have objected, and one of whom has provided a letter of support. The interior configuration of the house is just such that an addition was necessary to accomplish their purposes of adding a primary bedroom, suite, bathroom on the second floor, and making a more usable kitchen and family room on the first floor. They really worked to reduce as much as possible the size of the addition and the amount of relief they'd be asking for, and got it down to just under 75 square feet, which of course the board has the authority to grant by special permit. So I'll rest there. Ms. Stone is here to answer any questions the board might have. Of course, I am happy to answer any questions I can.
Thank you. It was a very clear narrative that you have provided, so that was laid out the case pretty well. Questions from the board?
I don't have questions. It was very clear.
That's the right question. I will. Well, let's go to the public. Are there anybody in the public who wishes to speak on this application, either in the room or online? Seeing none, then I'll close the this part of the public hearing. My question is, and we always come to this on this type of an application, is the alternatives, and that's, I think, is where Ms. Stone comes in, and I'd like you to tell us really why this needs to happen. If you know, maybe we can get a full plan up and you can explain what the reasoning is.
Yes. We just, you know, Jonathan mentioned it's an older house. and
Elise, you're gonna have to probably come up to the front.
And state your name and all that stuff.
Can you pull the plan up?
Yeah.
You want the
Oh,
floor plan? I'm not sure it's gonna be,
It's a little hard to read, but
yeah, it's.
Yeah, it was
It's
very,
just
very,
light.
very light, okay.
So anyway, my name is Elise Stone, 288 Old Marlborough Road in Concord. And it is hard. Should I go up there? Would that help?
Hmm?
I can
Yeah.
maybe find
Yeah.
this out.
Oh,
So,
I'm
it
sure
is
it's gonna help.
An old house, kind of a typical old house with a very kind of large hallway going up the middle. 2 rooms on the left with very nice trim and very nice detail. These 2 rooms here, and then there is a study here, also very nice. And this is kind of the side entrance from the driveway. So in the back, this line indicates where there was the kitchen and a small little sitting area. And so when we looked at this, when I looked at doing this plan, we said, usually you say, okay, let's open the plan up, okay, but as you can see here, there's a fireplace here, so this was very hard to kind of go through. Obviously, we didn't want to touch the bays with all the windows. So it really, to get just a decent kitchen, and this is a good kitchen, but by no means is it incredible, you know? But we had to just bump out, and that's where we ran into the FAR thing.
Mhm.
And again, we could not go to the right here as an addition. And we felt strongly that, you know, doing anything here didn't make it better because it was so long and narrow. So we just needed a little bit of square to get. So this is like a little couch area for a TV here, an entrance to the backyard, and, you know, we sunk it in to try to reduce the square footage needed as much as we could. You know, this stays the dining room. But again, because we were so limited, there was really it's not like we could borrow space from the rest of the house, which is normally what we do, right? We
Mhm.
say that, and you know, this is a back staircase here, so you couldn't open this up. So anyway, that was our limitations. So that's why we're,
Okay,
We're
thanks.
after that. yeah.
Any further questions?
The staircase, so the chimney and the staircase are like in the center of the house.
Exactly,
almost.
yes.
Yeah,
So, and there's 2 staircases.
Oh.
There's a staircase here and there's a little tiny half bath under it. And then there's a back staircase here. So, yeah.
I thought the, findings we need to make are well supported by the helpful, kind of cover letter we got. So, the addition, or the overage is very modest, which is in line with kind of what we've approved for exemptions so far in the past and, yeah, I think that was good.
yeah, so
No,
mine,
that's-
and I think the explanation, I think, was, well supported, so.
I move that we approve the application of Julie Pease and David Cucko for a special permit under zoning bylaw section 621311 to construct a 201 square foot addition on the first floor and 83.5 square foot addition on the second floor at the rear of the dwelling, which increases the gross floor area by 284.5 square feet, causing the max floor area ratio to be exceeded by 75 square feet at 1471 Main Street. Be approved.
I second that motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Nice to not have to take a roll call.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, North River Builders, the applicant on behalf of Christopher Brand, the owner, for a special permit under zoning bylaw section 715 and 11.6 to construct a 164 square foot 2-story addition on the east elevation that extends the non-conforming front yard setback to 17.4 feet and 195 square foot 2-story addition on the west elevation that extends the non-conforming side yard setback to 9.9 feet at 39 Damon Street.
Here, I'd like to recuse myself from this.
Okay, thank you. Okay, who's here to speak?
Joe Palmer, North River Builders, presenting on behalf of Chris Brand, 39 Damon Street. So we came and presented at the 1-9 meeting. We asked for a special permit on the west elevation, which was approved. And we, through kind of talking to you guys, ended up finding out that we should remove the variance application for the right side. Previously, the design was going to extend into that side yard setback. What we've done here is we have reduced the size of that addition, pulled it back in, so it's now within that side yard setback. But the special permit requirement comes in as we are extending a portion of that out to the front facade of the house, which is going to get into that front yard setback. You can see by the drawing, it's no worse than the worst part of that condition. Yeah, it's needing to extend up to the front of the house so that we can clear the interior stairwell, allowing for kind of a circular flow pattern. And that's gonna be a mudroom space for them to use.
And the addition to the, what's it, that's to the west.
Yep.
Currently, there is currently a setback violation there, right?
Correct, yep.
A second.
Because they borrowed.
Violation
They
or.
borrowed for 3 feet on that side.
Mhm.
I think they borrowed. Or they're.
That's what it,
Yeah.
that's what I looked at as well, that, you know, our zoning bylaw has this, provision that, you know, setbacks, you can go in a setback up to 3 feet on one side if you then
Borrow.
borrow from the other side.
Yep.
Which was done here before, so we let you go into, or let whomever did go into one, but then extending or changing the side yard setback on the east side. And so I have a little bit of as a result, no one can say there was, you know, we allowed you to go into that setback. But I think that setback is still there because we just moved the buildable area of the lot. And so now your extension, in my mind, and I'm happy if my board corrects me or changes my mind on this, but now I think that setback, now you have a variance. Right?
No, I don't think so, because he's not increasing the nonconformity on the east side. He's got 2.2 feet, 8 inches into the front yard, but that's less than the current encroachment.
No, but on the easement, on the east side, his
Yeah.
east, is, we allowed this applicant or maybe the previous owner to borrow from one
Right.
side and add it to the other side, changing the building envelope on the lot. So my contention is that and as a result, my contention now is that the setbacks as indicated on this plan are not correct. Because we borrowed from one side and added to the other side, so they're not even.
Yes.
Hey, guys, may remember me from that 60 days ago, we had a similar variance issue.
Sorry, for the
Correct me if
record.
I'm wrong. So that's
For the record, name and
Christopher
address.
Brown, 39 Denny Street, sorry.
Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and these are recorded, right? The west side addition was approved.
Correct.
So I don't know why we're going back and trying to not approve it. We're just, tying this into the revised east side addition. So you're saying that their approval from, which hasn't changed in footprint,
Mhm.
should not have been granted?
You might be right, but.
I guess my memory of when we approved the west side one is not sharp enough to remember if we were relying on that 3 foot. I mean, it seems like.
Just one thing to add on, saying the previous owner built out, we allowed them to build out. The house is from 1885. It has an original fieldstone foundation that actually wraps around that. So that addition is not it's not an addition. It's an actual bump out consistent with at least 3 other properties on the street. So
Okay.
it's definitely wasn't a recent modern addition that borrowed from one side to pay for the other.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. That's good to know. It was just, yeah. Do we have any other, does the board have questions?
No, it's a pretty small.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with your concern. I don't understand We approved the west and went up,
Yep.
and so now he's coming for the east, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And what's the encroachment on the east, the 2.8? 2 feet 8 with the roof line?
No, the addition on the east actually encroaches on the front setback.
Just the front.
Yeah, it's not into the side yard setback on the east side, it's just the front.
But it's less of an encroachment than the existing house.
Right.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Right.
So for me, I find that, therefore, for me, I find that significant in it.
I think I'm with Tom, like, I
Okay.
think we can reopen what we
Me too.
approved in the past, that's there now.
Yeah,
We're
good.
just looking at the east here, which is not going into the side, right, it's just, we're looking at that.
Cause I think the standard is, will not, be substantially more detrimental than is
Yep.
present to the presently in neighborhood. And
That's.
so for me, it's not, but.
Okay.
Just to clarify so the house, it's my understanding, that the house is considered a legal non-conforming dwelling because it was built prior to
Yeah,
that
that's
provision.
Right.
So just.
Yeah,
address that
and
concern.
that got stated by the applicant, by the owner just now, yeah. Good, okay, let's go to the public. Anybody from the public who wishes to speak? Not seeing anybody. Closes that part of the public hearing. Anybody else make any comments? Did we discuss this enough or?
And I also agree, it's coming into the front yard less than the house already comes in, it's within the kind of overall massing, and it's a very modest addition, I think. I can't see any detriment to the neighborhood. So I think it meets the byline.
I agree.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay,
Okay,
I can go with that.
I could make a motion. Okay, I move that, Christopher Brand be granted a special permit under zoning bylaw 7.1.5 and 11.6 to construct 164 square foot, two-story addition on the east elevation that extends the non-conforming front yard setback to 17.4 feet and 195 square foot, two-story addition on the west elevation that extends the non-conforming side yard setback to 9.9 feet at 39 Damon Street.
All those,
Second.
all those in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye. Congratulations.
Righteous.
See,
Thank you.
I can be convinced
Adjourn the
otherwise.
I mean, at a certain point, it's not detrimental to the neighborhood and.
Yeah, it goes by it. In fact, oh, that's clicking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You're right,
being-
technically.
Being that it's 7:10, Bentley Building Corporation applicant owner for special permit on the zoning bylaws, section 7.15 and 11.6 to demolish an existing 2,166 square foot dwelling and construct a new 5,780 square foot, two-story dwelling with attached two-car garage that increases the gross floor area by more than 50% at 105 Prescott Street. I actually want to note that Stephen joined us again, after recusing himself for the previous, application. So who's here to speak for the applicant?
Yes, my name is Elise Stone. I'm the architect on the project. This is Mark White. He's the owner. So the existing,
Address.
oh, sorry, 288 Old Marlborough Road.
Thank you,
233 Independence Road.
thank you.
Sorry. Anyway, so the existing house, it's a ranch style house built in 1953. It's a non-conforming on the lot. So right now the house is non-conforming on the right side setback. The lot is also non-conforming on the frontage. This is Residence B. We need 125 and we have 100. We are conforming with the lot area. The lot is 25,232 square feet and Residence B need 20,000. So the new house is, as mentioned, 50% more in the GFA than the existing house, and that's what we're going for. So the house itself that's proposed is 3,448 square feet. And the garage is 608 square feet. So we are over the proposed GFA by 2,531 square feet. Okay, but this lot could support the FAR of 7,255 square feet. And our proposed for the FAR square footage is 4,056. We're conforming to all the setbacks, front, side, rear, and height, obviously. So it's really just for the over square footage that we're seeking the special permit.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Questions from
I have,
planning department?
yes, I have a question. The triangle at the top of the property?
Can I stand up?
Oh,
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
please,
Hi,
because,
Mark White, 233 Independence Road, owner of Bentley Building Corp. When we purchased the lot, the current homeowners, I believe, Matthew Grant, thought they owned 111 feet of frontage. Speaking with the neighbors, there's been this triangle right here of 11 feet that back in 1953 went to the planning board, had all the deeds signed. They did a land swap, this triangle for a piece back here. This triangle got recorded, the legal transfer. This portion did not.
Hmm.
So our whole application is based upon 100 feet. So it all conforms to the side yard setbacks. So this triangle is not part of the application. Although it's shown as on the previous slide, with the existing house, it shows that triangle is being included. So that the actual existing house is in worse non-conformity than due to this piece that's in question. So the current homeowners are in land court trying to resolve that, but our whole application is based upon this 100 feet. There's nothing, we're not making any application with that triangle.
got it, okay, good.
Does that make sense?
Mark, could I,
Sure.
who would be the owner of the triangular piece of land?
We think that eventually we will be.
Because
It was, we've been speaking with Mark Murnick next door. His mother and the previous owners signed an agreement that, but because they didn't own the land, they had no right to deed it. So Cranmore Construction is the actual owner from 1953. They're no
would
longer,
they be the owner today?
they are the owner today.
Okay,
But we can't find anybody that still represents Cranmore Construction. So everything was signed, agreed upon, it just wasn't properly recorded at the registry, so therefore this is going to land court right
and
now.
so the question at the land court is to return that triangular piece of land to
To
the owners of,
the owners of,
okay,
but like I say, we still meet all the requirements, we meet the setbacks without that triangular piece.
got it,
So if we do get it, the setbacks would be even further.
thank you.
Just one, Elise, what's the width of the existing house compared to the width of the proposed? What's the delta?
60 versus 68.
60 versus 68.
Approximately the same, okay, thank you.
Let's go, no further question from the board. Let's open it up to public comment. Mr. Grant has his hand up. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
hello. Just as clarification on the land court case, we've just published today a
Name and
notification.
address, please.
Oh, sorry,
Name-
Matthew Grant, 6 Riggs Point Road, Gloucester, Mass. And yeah, so this is actually, we're meeting again with the land court with seeking default judgment to have that parcel made part of the lot again. So that's fully underway right now.
Good, thank you. Mr. Herring.
He's on mute.
Good evening,
You're
you
muted,
go.
you're muted.
good evening. I
Okay.
believe I've unmuted. Are we ready to go? I'm Bill Herring. I live at 214 Peters Spring Road. This proposed project is in my backyard. I'd like to offer my full support. We have a proven builder here who can get in and get the job done and not get mired down in the details. So I would urge you to move it on. The neighborhood is being redeveloped. The houses that are being removed are not a loss. The new ones that are being built are proven energy performers and give us a cleaner climate.
Thank you,
Let's move it on.
thank you.
Oh, go at it.
Okay,
That's it. Anything else?
anybody else, any comments? Not seeing anybody, I'm closing the public comment section of this hearing. Discussions from the board. I actually drove by the site today. I had, to be honest, I had some reservations given the neighborhood. It's a neighborhood of mainly one-story, very low-slung homes. This is being one of them, and I think this house is gonna be, I don't want to necessarily say different, but it's gonna be updated, and therefore it's gonna be somewhat different than the other homes in the area. But I think Mr. Herring's comment was to that point, like, you know, that's it's this is what's gonna happen. And I actually had a question, and we have because it's a non-conforming lot that you are here, and I was wondering how many other non-conforming lots there are here. Because, you know, especially, you know, if
I think the
you.
lot is conforming. The house is, the lot is conforming, I think.
Not to frontage.
Not the
Yeah, the lot is like.
It's conforming to area.
Yes,
And
okay,
the structure will conform to setbacks.
right.
But it's just the frontage.
Oh, okay, right.
So give me a second.
Yeah, I'd like to know that.
I have a
So-
question about the neighborhood while we're looking for that. How many of the other lots are starting to be redeveloped?
This will be our third one in there. There's probably a total of probably 10 to 15 that have been redeveloped. So it's turning
Okay,
over.
so it's in process.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's
Well,
definitely in progress. I mean,
Okay.
maybe,
Down there.
this is the first one on Prescott Street that's been a complete tear down. There have been several remodels, that have taken place right adjacent to this lot.
Good,
So
okay.
it's, like I say, it's if you go down Peter Spring Road, Arrowhead, or the other side of Prescott. I mean, there's been, it's not 100% rebuilt, but it's a substantial renovation.
Okay, so
Sure.
the character is starting to
Oh, absolutely.
evolve,
Yeah.
it sounds like.
and I think that was my word, because with all these one-story homes, there is definitely character in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's just changing.
And, you know,
And
Yeah,
change is not bad, but,
But as Mr. Herring correctly pointed out, I mean, these homes are just so much more energy efficient than these
no,
small homes. And the heating bills and the energy that'll be consumed in this new house, even though it's larger, will be a lot less than the existing structure.
that's
I
amazing.
guarantee.
I will, I will, as long as you set the heat at the same temperature.
Yeah, 68 degrees.
So on the screen, the tan parcels are all parcels that have non-conforming frontage. And there's a couple of the pink parcels. Those are all non-conforming to area and frontage. There's very, very few parcels that are non-conforming for just, I don't see any parcels that are non-conforming to just area. But, you know, there's quite a few that are non-conforming to frontage.
And actually, that's, if you zoom in on this lot, I mean, neighbors on both sides are conforming, right? So that also is, you know,
Yes, the neighbor on one side is, because it's a corner lot. So it has frontage on two sides.
yeah, but the other neighbor as well, you know, and there is just more neighbor. So that, and that's the other thing, it's like, you know. You know, if we were to deny this permit, which aren't, you know, you both your neighbors could build this tomorrow without being here, right? So I don't wanna.
I wanted to see this map as well, and it looks like, you know, this particular street, more than half of the homes are on conforming lots, and
Yeah.
there's.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
majority, I
yeah.
would say, in the greater neighborhood are conforming to.
Yeah.
Once again, Mark White, 233 Independence. On Saturday, I had a neighborhood meeting where I put envelopes or letters in everyone's mailbox that's on the abutters list to discuss the project. Probably half the people came out, half didn't, but nobody had any objections to what we were proposing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, no, I just, this last, graphic that, you know, your neighbors could build this tomorrow and, you know, so that would be, you know, not fair to you if you were to do that. Well, we closed the public hearing section, but Mr. Herring, just go ahead.
Thank you. This discussion of what's a conforming lot and what's not a conforming lot. These have all been legitimate lots since the time they were subdivision and built upon. To come at it from this angle of nonconformity is the thin end of the wedge of trying to block a project because paperwork that has come after its legitimate subdivision and establishment has moved it into situations of nonconformity. Let's move the job along, gentlemen.
Thank you, and we would like to move it, well, we can't move it into a conformity, but we can make sure that the rules that came after these lots were subdivided.
Come up with clever ways to make things work.
But anyway, thank you. Have we beaten this horse?
Oh, yeah.
We've beaten this horse.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's like you, I saw the square footage going up pretty dramatically, you know, I wouldn't call this a modest house. But, you know, based on the massing, based on the neighborhood, based on the public comment, I think we can find that there isn't substantial detriment to building this.
Good.
Agreed.
I take a motion.
Okay. I move that we grant to Bentley Building Corporation a special permit under zoning bylaw section 7.1.5 and 11.6 to demolish existing 2,166 square foot dwelling and construct a new 5,780 square foot two-story dwelling with attached two-car garage that increases the gross floor area by more than 50% at 105 Prescott Road.
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
7:15, I'll read it out here. Lisa Krasner, the applicant on behalf of the Concord Museum, being the owner, for special permit under zoning bylaws sections 545 and 11.6 to hold a one-day outdoor event at 53 Cambridge Turnpike. Typically, that's a special permit for a one-day event. But since this is under the umbrella of the 250th celebration here in town, it is exempt for this, so that application is not required, and therefore Ms. Krasner is not here. 7:20, HeatherHopkins.co, the applicant on behalf of Kerry McCormick, the owner, for a sign variance under sign bylaw sections 3C2 and 8AB to allow 6 additional signs at the ADM proposed Citizens Bank at 768 Elm Street. Anybody here?
I'm here for that.
Great.
Good evening. My name is Heather Dudko, 27 Old Meeting House Road in Auburn, Mass. And I work with the sign installer, Philadelphia Sign, on this project for citizens. So as you probably know, there's a new multi-tenant building being developed at that address. And Citizens will be a tenant on the right. They're on the corner right. That will be their tenant space. And they're proposing a drive-up ATM machine in the parking lot. So they would like to have some signage on that machine. And that's why we're before the board tonight. We have applied for the 2 wall signs and the tenant panel on site, and we do have those permits. So these are additional signage, considered additional signage on site. So after Mr. Pickering and I went through the proposal, we determined that we needed to apply for 6 total, even though some of the vinyl and some of the lettering on the machine is more of a directional nature, but it does mention Citizens and it does have a Citizens feel. So we felt that we should include everything comprehensively to show the board. There's 2 sets of letterings on the side. Illuminated push-through letterings on each side of the canopy. This illuminated lettering on the ATM machine itself. And all the sizes were delineated in the package there. And then there's some vinyl lettering. That shows a virtual assist. I'm not quite sure what that is, but it's more of like the way that you interact with the machine. It's just an assist thing. So the total square footage, if all the components were approved, would be 35 square foot on the machine and the canopy itself. And as I said, it's determined as 6 signs. So this is what they ideally would like. It doesn't mean that this is how it really has to look. I do know that their priority for the signage is the 2 sets of letterings on the side, the vertical, and the lettering on the ATM machine itself. Those would be the most important components for them.
Do you have a site plan?
Yeah.
Yep, so I can, previously, so right here, this is, basically right, if you can see my little mouse. I can blow this up a little bit. So this is, if you're facing the new building and you're standing with Elm Street, at your back, to the right of the building is where the drive-through ATM is located. And this is where this top, right up here in this corner, the back rear right corner of the building is where the drive-through ATM is and where that ATM will be located.
So there are signs on the building itself.
Correct.
And they're fall within the sign bylaw.
Yes.
And then there is 1 ATM station in the back, right? So the vertical citizen sign, right? So there is, it's almost like a bus shelter here. So as you approach this bus shelter, there's a citizen sign. And then on the back side of that shelter facing
The woods.
the woods,
The
Oh,
river.
the river.
Yeah, but you can't drive up
You
to
can't
it from the
drive
other side.
that
You only have one side approach on this.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's not as if you don't know it's Citizens because everything is green and everything is signed in that area. So you know it's part of that assemblage.
Yeah, so indeed, I was having some issues there as well. Let me, do you have any other questions here from the board before I open it up to the public?
Let's see if we all agree that what they're asking for a variance. As I understand the code, it's A, B, and C, and really it's only B, I think, that would apply, which is the Board of Appeals determines that the circumstances involved with a particular sign were not contemplated by the bylaw.
Right, that's the only thing that
So
would
that's the
fall
standard that
under.
we're talking about tonight.
Yeah,
Well, and,
potentially.
you know, as we talked about when we were approving the other applications with the Duncan for I think an additional sign, that it's a unique area, you know, that people are finding it from Route 2. Those are big bright signs, but on the other hand, people driving by would, know, oh, there is an ATM there. So it is, there's a uniqueness to that area. for Concord. There's nowhere else that has that
Right, right.
kind of
No,
drive
I-
by the highway feel.
I understand that the Duncan, yeah, was it needed kind of, these guys have the building signage already set, right? So this is just for the drive-through.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean,
But,
that's if what we wanna, that,
As a consumer, if I'm thinking, oh, I need to do this, oh, look, it's gonna be that quick.
yeah.
It's not unuseful.
And you know, a lot of times the drive-through ATM is like under breezeway that's attached to the building, so you don't need to separately sign it, but here if it's a standalone, you know, I can kind of see
Do we bring the plan back up?
that, it-
Mm.
you know, there's
I-
there's some
there-
helpful
there-
information that like, oh, that's the.
I think there is, I agree. And I'll just, you know, we should discuss a little bit
Sure.
further after we open it up, but I think there is some validity to approving or to giving a variance for some additional signage. I mean, I think you can make that argument. I'm not quite sure whether it's 6. I don't think you can make that argument. But let me open it up, since somebody has a hand on, let me open it up for public comment. And I'm gonna butcher this name, sorry, Miss Rothermel.
Hello, do I have to turn my
oh.
camera on or not?
You don't have to.
Okay, so I'm Holly Rothermel. I live on Assabet Avenue and we get to live behind this new commercial venture. And we already see the nice bright Dunkin' sign from our windows. So it's not clear to me why the Citizens Bank ATM needs extra signs. They are in the back of the building near the Best Western. That means the cars will be driving through with their lights aiming on our street. And my assumption would be these lights are probably going to be on for a significant portion of the night. And I think that people can already see the citizen sign. I don't see why we need extra signage added to that in the back of this place that just faces us, basically.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public? Anybody in here? Seeing none, closing the public comment section of this hearing. And I think, you know,
I just have somebody point out to me that where the citizens' virtual assistants, I couldn't quite figure out on what I saw where those were and why you needed them, but.
I don't know.
I really don't know. I don't know what the, I think that's just to advertise that this particular unit has some sort of extra special interaction with the ATM.
Is it accessibility? Like,
Maybe.
I don't think so.
no, okay,
No, I don't think it has to do with this accessibility.
okay.
Yeah.
so I think if you come from the street, right?
Mhm.
You see the citizens in that sort of the
vertical,
right? That's wayfinding. I can understand
I
that.
like that one.
Do you need, well, the backside, I think, is very questionable.
Noted.
Right?
Yep, I'm there.
Do we also need signage on the machines themselves?
I would say no, because they're already there. They know what that machine is.
And it's nice green,
Correct.
right? So
Okay.
I'm not, I'm not, and remember, and then I think that was also the public comment here, it's this signage is all lit, right? It's all lit signage.
Just the three, the two vertical signs are lit. And the signage on the ATM unit itself is lit.
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
Everything else is vinyl.
I would comment that the one that goes over the canopy, the height clearance is gonna be required anyway.
Yeah.
Is this canopy lit? Is there downlights in that canopy that light this whole thing up?
I don't know that, actually.
I bet you there
I
is.
think
I
for-
guarantee there
for
are.
safety,
For
I
safety,
would think
yeah.
for nighttime
Right.
safety.
All I'm
I
saying
wouldn't
is,
want her do
to that point that you've got a lit sign that's already lit from the front and you
Yeah,
probably
so
don't need
the
it.
back sign would
You've
need to
lit
be
this whole
illuminated.
green entity up and you've stamped it with citizen. You don't need all the other branding to convey the same message
Right, right.
repeatedly.
Right,
It's my,
and then so the virtual assistant is also both front and back, right?
Yeah.
Which is also front.
I
isn't
don't
it?
even know. I would think we almost need more information about.
Yeah, no,
what
I
the function
mean,
is Of that,
well, it doesn't need to say, if it's a virtual assistant, it doesn't need to say citizens,
correct,
right?
agreed.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
I'm kind of not clear, where is this virtual assistant? Is that on the machine?
It's on,
yeah,
yes,
it's on the side of
On
the
the side.
machine,
decided the machine.
which is gonna be kind of hard to see because the leg canopy is covering it up. If I'm reading that right. The machine is set between the two vertical legs.
Oh,
It's
okay.
got two side elements with signs on it that are covered up by the two larger citizen signs.
Oh,
Is that,
okay,
that's how I'm
Yes.
reading it.
okay.
And again, one's facing forward, one's facing back.
So this actually is right there. Is
Yeah, it's in, I think it's
Yes.
right
that,
there.
is that right? Okay.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, huh?
The side panels, you said are interiorly illuminated,
the vertical.
did those go off? Or are they on all night?
Well, they probably would like them on all night.
Because it's a cash machine, you can show up every.
Um,
minute
Maybe
of
the back side then?
So, there is parking lot lighting. Um. And.
Yep.
I don't know exactly. Where it is, on the site, I believe there is lighting under the canopy, but there is also parking. There is a
Approach lighting,
photometrics
okay.
plan that was approved as part of the site plan.
Yeah.
It's a well-lit site.
Yeah, yeah, so,
So would it need to be lit? On the outside, maybe the downlight for safety on the
right,
inside?
right.
Okay,
Mhm.
If the applicant were willing to postpone this to an additional hearing and come back with, having based on what they've heard from us.
Yep.
Come back with a more realistic layout of the signs they want and the lighting. The lighting makes a difference.
Mhm.
And I personally, since I don't have the vote, but I would be uneasy to vote for this as is because I don't have the right information.
Oh, no, that's, I actually was about to make a proposal here that we vote on, and then they can come back. And if they don't like it, and see whether we can be amenable to something else. My proposal is only one sign on the banner as you approach, unlit, and no citizens anywhere. You don't need citizens on the cash machine. You don't need citizens on the virtual assistant. It says virtual assistant, doesn't need to say citizen virtual assistant, and obviously no sign, and obviously not lit on the backside. So only one variance for a sign on the canopy facing the front.
but not illuminated.
But not illuminated, because the sign, the site is illuminated, there's gonna be illumination under that canopy. That would be my proposal.
I think they will agree to that.
Right. I want you to make that motion. It's pretty specific.
I would, make a motion to grant a sign variance for one sign on the,
Approach.
the approach side of the, structure, the shelter. That's not illuminated. And, do not grant the other 5 variances.
All right. I second that motion.
Before you do that, can I ask a question? Is the height warning sign one of the signs?
No, no,
Okay,
it's
that's all I
all
wanna make
right,
sure.
right,
Okay,
right,
yep.
right, right.
I second that motion.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
Very much.
Mhm.
Great.
All right. It's-
Okay, it's 7:30, but I would like to have a brief recess, if that's, 5-minute recess, if that's,
Sure.
Thank you.
They don't tolerate it, they leave you alone.
Okay, we're back. Thank you for, being patient with us. It's, 7:30, the Thorough Residence LLC for a comprehensive permit under, MGL chapter 40B, paragraphs 20 through 23 for a 237 unit multifamily development, which is a 13.08 acre portion of the real property known and numbered as 275 Forest Ridge Road. Before we start, a couple of housekeeping issues. First off, Ravi missed the last meeting. Lucky him. Actually, it was actually, no joking, no joking. It was a long meeting, but it was an excellent meeting. I thought we got a lot accomplished and it was an excellent meeting. It was just long, but it was good. Ravi did review the tape, fill out the paperwork. I signed that paperwork as well. So since this was the first meeting, first hearing that, Ravi missed, he still is compliant and is a voting, member. Second issue, second housekeeping note is that there was a meeting, actually two meetings with the applicant and neighbors at both Sweet Birch and Black Birch. It was earlier this week.
Great.
I attended that. The recap of this meeting, and the applicant and neighbors can correct me if I'm wrong. But I thought there were two very good meetings. The issues were, although they have different issues, right? One has sort of headlines coming, issue of the headlights coming out. The other is there are 3 or 4 units that through the woods, especially when there's no leaves on the trees, you can see the building. So applicant walked sort of both issues with the neighbors. Was a great conversation, great conversations. Issues were made clear. Applicant understood the issues, and I think is in further negotiations or talks with the neighbors on how to address these issues. And I think that discussion was going very well, and I think the solutions were pretty clear of what could happen. So I think that's good. And since I think most of that mitigation is going to be offsite for us, you know, it won't be part of our decision. But you know, it is good to know that, you know, it is being addressed. Some of these concerns that the neighbors had are being addressed. So that's one of the the other housekeeping issue. The last one is, and we should discuss that on the end of the hearing as well tonight, but I want to put it out so that we can, as we talk, we can think about that, is timing. We said that tonight was going to be sort of crossing T's, dotting I's, and then we'd be voting on a decision on the 3rd of April. That was the original setup. I think that's tight. I don't think we can get there. The peer review consultant, civil peer review consultant is still out there. And hasn't put their final responses back. Even the architectural peer review consultant is still writing his final memo. So I don't think there is close of a hearing tonight, which is an issue because tomorrow is when our time frame ends. So that's given that time frame, I actually want to think about having a meeting on April 10th, which gives us only 1 week, but we have then the 3rd and then the 7th to vote. Any later, you know, you end up in the 250th celebration, school vacation. I'm going to be gone early May, so it's going to be tricky. So I would like to think about having an additional meeting on April 10th. Therefore, you know, I would like to ask the applicant, and actually the applicant might want to ask us to ask them for an extension, because what also was brought to my attention is that if we close public hearing tonight, the applicant has no opportunity to review and comment on the conditions that we will be putting on. And, you know, I think the applicant would like to do that. If I were him, I would like that opportunity, so and it also doesn't have, need to happen now, but I would like to have an extension, until, April 11th.
I said 10.
10 is the meeting, so I want the extension to the 11th.
If they're acceptable, could we like push it to Monday?
Oh,
And not like the next day to get the decision filed?
All you need to.
oh, the meeting on a Monday?
Oh, you're talking about, an extension to close the public hearing.
Close the.
Close,
hearing.
okay,
Once
Yeah.
you close the hearing, you
Okay.
have 40 days to.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
nope, thank you.
Right. So please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ian Urquhart from Nutter McClellan Fish, legal counsel for the applicant. My colleague Jim Ward is raising his hand on the,
Okay, sorry,
weighing in on.
yeah, Mr. Ward, please go ahead.
Hello, I think my camera works tonight. You can see my crutches. So
I'm sorry.
with respect to continuing the hearing, yeah, I don't see any issue with respect to that. And whether you close the hearing in some near period, waiting, keeping the hearing open, waiting for the consultant's comments, I think is correct, because the law with respect to opening and closing hearings is that once the hearing is closed, we cannot introduce, or nobody can introduce any new information that's not already currently in the record. So once the hearing's closed, the only thing that you can do is go and fish around in whatever the existing material is to get answers to stuff. So it's prudent to keep it open. If the board is concerned about, I don't know, something that comes up in a peer review comment that it would benefit us to respond to with new information or something, I think that's prudent. With respect to commenting on the decision, once all of the evidence is in, then it's appropriate to close the hearing, and then you have 40 days to work on the decision. That doesn't bar us from working on the decision, because we're not giving new information. We're merely editing or talking about material that is already in the record. So it would just be, discussing a condition for trees or whatever, and we would talk about that. If something came up, and I think discussing in a hearing, if there's any thoughts of conditions that might make us claim that those conditions would make the project uneconomic, and it would have to be all of the conditions in total, then that would be something you'd probably want to talk, you'd probably want to go through all the waivers and things like that. But once the hearing's closed and we start working on the decision, we can just work on the decision. You don't need to keep the hearing open for that. But that, again, I'm not advocating to close the hearing tonight. I'm not saying we wouldn't give an extension. I just don't want you to think that we can't still accomplish things once the hearing's closed.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I know that we need peer review consultants, as I said, civil and architectural at the moment still, so that we need the hearing open for that. I'm not expecting, we have an email from our civil peer review consultant saying that they have not finished their review yet, but they're not seeing anything, out of the ordinary, and they're just working on it, so.
Fair enough.
So do you want to say something here?
Certainly, just to expand upon what Jim was saying. The critical items here is the whole uneconomic piece. So the board is gonna begin to deliberate and discuss the conditions that you believe need to be included. And also on your decisions on the waivers. And if the total sum of either conditions or your unwillingness to grant certain waivers in total lead them to say, well, we think that that combination is going to render the project uneconomic, then it is the board's opening to review the financials on the project. You cannot do that unless they make that public claim within the public hearing. If that does happen, then they present financial information and then you can have an opportunity to review and engage peer reviews to do that. It's unlikely that's going to happen because of that very tenuous, extended, very loosely defined process of diving into the financials. I think in most instances, if they're going to go there, they would rather stay quiet and let that happen out at HAC. They would accept the decision with conditions and maybe the denial of waivers that led it to uneconomic. And they would rather than fighting with you for 4 months on the minutia of the economics, did have that adjudicated at HAC. I'm not suggesting that they would do that, but it's just never come up. We always say this, and then it never comes up. We get through the decision and they accept the decision as the board sees fit. What does need to begin in earnest to move into action is the formulation of a draft decision. And I think the nuts and bolts, the preamble to it and all the beginnings, that's not important at this juncture. What is important is for the board and the consultants to start to amass the conditions. And with more attention to very unique conditions that might be on this project, that might shape or change the project, and then also to begin openly discussing the waivers, so that if you are really moving towards not granting a certain waiver, then I think that needs to come up.
Yeah, thanks for that. Waivers were on my agenda tonight. So that's a good thing. And obviously we want to have this project approved and go ahead. And indeed, obviously, nobody wants to be having any appeals or any of that. So, but
Yeah, for what it's worth. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, for what it's worth, that was a very good summary by Joe. My personal sense, having gone through this as collaboratively as we have, I would be pretty shocked if there was some condition that came out that was like so unexpected that we wouldn't just follow come out at the end. But I think Joe's right, and that was what I was saying as far as getting the conditions and the waivers all dealt with, and then moving on.
Yeah, thanks. That was actually kind of my point, that why I wanted make sure that you all don't stumble on 1 or 2 or 3 of our conditions. If they are too sharp, or if they need to be reworded something, then we want to be open to that. We want to get a decision that everybody can live with.
Just from a process standpoint, do you prepare the draft and we have a look at it, or we prepare the draft? Different places do it differently.
No, we do the draft.
Okay, good.
We do the draft.
Excellent. Even better, even better.
The royal we.
So, yeah, no, and that actually was also one of the points I wanted to bring up indeed, tonight is like that I think need to ask Elizabeth and town council to start working on the decision, so that we're all there.
Yeah, and I would suggest that you put a call out to the consultants, the peer review consultants to go through their reports or what have you, and that there's certainly gonna be things that they believe were left to be ripe for conditions, and they can help Elizabeth.
Yeah, I thought I asked.
Populate those sections.
Yeah, I thought I asked the architectural peer reviewer this afternoon, but we might want to make sure that that's clear, that we would like a list from him.
Yeah.
That was sort of my housekeeping stuff. And then, you have a presentation, and then as we just said, we want to run through the waivers here tonight. And then see what else will come up.
Are you looking for the motion to extend at this point?
Do we need a motion to ask them to?
No, the board would need to, based on the conversation tonight, move to accept a time extension to April 11th. And we'll email that form to you tomorrow for your signature. But the board should move and second to accept that time extension.
So they have to ask for it first?
Right now. So, I mean, it's verbal, it's recorded, so I don't have an issue with the board moving and accepting the time extension, and we'll file it tomorrow.
Or I'd move that we accept the time extension
To
till April 11th.
Thank you.
Second. Yeah.
All those favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for that. That's a little bit of relief for us.
What was that?
Permission to share the screen.
Oh, yeah, give me 2 seconds. You should be able to, but, I need to stop. Okay, you should be able to. Yes, there you go.
The little icon in the bottom right.
There we go.
Okay,
You want to make it full screen?
full screen, please, yeah.
Or let
Right
it
there,
slider.
you got
There
it.
you go.
There we go. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Jim Lambert, Wood Partners Managing Director, on behalf of the applicant here tonight. I thought tonight, we don't have a very long presentation, but I thought I'd recap sort of what has happened since the last meeting, and we do have a few slides to go through to show everybody. So the first section on this project update slide is the submission items since the last meeting. So as you've noted, we have submitted a full set in responses to GPI, the town's peer reviewer. Those are under review by GPI, and presumably we'll have a response in short order to those that we can respond to if needed. We have submitted a sustainability narrative that was requested. We have submitted a proposed mechanical screening plan, which we are going to go through tonight. We have submitted an indoor amenity area program summary, which I think everybody's seen, and I responded to a question, but happy to walk through that tonight as well. And we have submitted a bicycle storage plan as well, which we'll show shortly. A couple of other items that are not necessarily submission items, but as mentioned, we had a neighborhood meeting with Black Birch and Sweet Birch associations on Monday. Out of that meeting came some really good discussion and some plans for screening that we'll be enacting and dealing with those associations separately outside of this process. In addition to the
plantings that we discussed with the neighbors, there was commentary on the building colors. Blending those colors into the environment a little bit more than we had previously proposed. To try to make the buildings disappear, if you will, a little bit more. So we have some proposal that we're gonna walk through that tonight, with TAT. There was a fire department letter issued today that we received that we can discuss. And then, as mentioned, the architectural peer reviewer, Cliff Bomer, sent an email today outlining his thoughts on our submissions up top.
Yeah.
So with that, we are gonna go through a couple of items. So Jay, if you would, we're gonna talk about the mechanical screening first.
Jay Samansky, I'm an architect with the architectural team, with the architects for the project. At our last meeting and as part of Cliff's review, there was some mention of mechanical screening. So we took a pretty close look at that and we came up with a plan, a proposed plan of where we would screen mechanical equipment. So what you're looking at is a roof plan of the two buildings. We propose our mechanical equipment basically down the center of the building, so over the corridors. Most of the views are coming from Black Birch. So we're orienting that screening to that side so that the red line shows our proposed locations for screening. And what it is basically a wall, for lack of a better term, it stands about 4 feet off the surface of the roof. And that's clad with siding that's similar to the siding on the building. And that's meant to both cover the mechanical equipment visually, but also provide some acoustical separation from the mechanical equipment. Go to the next slide. So just to give a view, this is approximate view from Black Birch Lane with the trees removed, the houses removed. This is what you would see without the screening in place. You can see those condensing units across the roof. Go to the next slide. And this is again with the proposed screening in place. Notice that you really can't see the building behind. You can really only see building A because of the viewpoint. Most of building B is hidden behind building A. Next slide. So this one is now in color. Again, we would use similar materials that we're using on the building, so it basically becomes part of the building. I think that was the last one. That's the aerial view. So it's just an aerial view. So again, so this is up much higher, so you would never see this view, but just to give you an idea of what we're screening, that's the mechanical equipment on the roof. And the next one. And that's the proposed location of the physical screen. Yep, I think that was it on that. I think that. See if there's any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
So pretty obvious, but you know that the equipment won't exceed that 4-foot height.
Well, it won't in general. There might be 1 or 2 pieces of equipment that extends higher than that, and we can adjust the height of that screen if we need to.
So you would adjust the screen to match whatever
Correct.
the height was. Okay, great.
And I think, in his email this afternoon, the architecture peer review consultant was okay with screening, right?
Great.
Thank you.
Take this, Sean. Take it. All right, so what we have on the screen now is just a summary. There was a request for programming for the interior amenity space. This is again, the interior is not designed yet, of course, but this is our typical and anticipated program for the project. So a main entrance lobby, leasing office where property management will be staffed full-time, mail and package rooms for the residents to receive mail and packages, pretty straightforward. What we would refer to as a club room or a lounge, which is kind of the bulk of the space, where there'll be seating areas, TVs.
I looked there, I didn't see it.
Whoa.
So we very recently, our first meeting, we had a Zoom on our very first meeting, if you you had a different team then, But we now recently had, the town had a Zoom bomb again.
Oh, really?
So did you see the panic?
I remember those. It's been a while.
Yeah. Sorry.
No problem. So, just continuing down the list. So work from home space / business center. So over the years, that space is sort of more from what we used to call a business center. We could go in and use a computer to work from home space. So space where you can get out of your apartment, go down and just that work from home, whether that's private or semi-private. We usually do a mix of those spaces. People love them. It's one of the most used amenities that we have in our buildings. Fitness center / yoga, of course, that's another very popular and main amenity that we'll have in the building. And then the dinner supper club was one that I know there was a question about. So to be clear about that, that is an area where we'll have dining space. Typically it's used for, if you wanted to have a birthday party or have your family over for a holiday, and you could bring in some from the outside, order pizzas, catering wherever you wanted. You're not cooking on site. It's for the residents and their guests in the space.
So there is no kitchen?
Correct. There's sometimes a warming drawer,
Okay.
but that's the extent of what you'd have, maybe a refrigerator. And then amenity restrooms that would be used for obviously the space, and then often for the pool space as well.
Thank you.
No, I'm gonna fully defer to the public health director and the food code. Regarding what under the food code is considered the requirement for a catering kitchen. And just for your information, we have a lot of nonprofit spaces, schools, and they propose projects where this is just a staff kitchen. So you're not going to be having any private functions where you're gonna have a caterer come in and plate hot and cold things. Well, yeah, we might. Well, that fits into a certain section of the food code. So I'm gonna, if you can just reply back and provide that information to the health director.
Sure.
She'll provide that feedback.
And one other thing, the size, because if you could end up in public assembly in the process.
They're usually, they're pretty small. They're
Just
enough for
give it a
maybe 8 or
size.
10
Yeah.
seats at a dining
just-
table.
Just
But
clarify,
no,
because
yeah,
you say
appreciate that.
dining super club,
Right.
that implies a size.
That's more of a
Cut through it than just say 1,000 square foot or whatever. Yeah.
Sure, understood. No, thank you. But we're happy to work through that. We've built these on other projects, and that's never even come up. So we're pretty confident that it won't be an issue, but we're happy to.
This is common.
Fair enough.
There's a lot happening in this community.
So that's the amenity program. Is there any other questions on the, we can move forward past that item?
I have one other question. All of these are amenities. The only one you said is dining supper club for residents only, but are all of these amenities are for just residents only, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that was just specifically written there
Okay,
for clarity, but
That should
yes, they're
just
all
be-
for residents.
that should be just clarified.
Correct.
Which can be done in a decision.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, bike storage. So what we have had success with in the past is taking a parking bay on projects where we have a separate structure for parking. In this case, we've proposed actually adding a bay. So we've taken away a surface parking space. Instead of taking away one of the existing garage spaces, we've actually extended that. So you would lose the space in front of it, and then we would install bike racks like you see here in the image. We've done this on several projects. It's always very popular. You have a key fob access into there. You can lock your bike up on the bike racks and then take it out and head to the trails. That's what we're proposing here.
And then how many bikes?
I think there's 27 racks in that section.
For 237 units.
Yeah, people often will put them in their units, or they'll put them, we can provide outdoor storage as well. That's pretty typical for a suburban development, but I'm happy to hear.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit underparked.
Okay.
That's a term I haven't used in this this discussion yet, but that's underparked in my mind. And I agree with you, as a cyclist, I would put some of my bikes in my unit, but others I would put here. And now you have a site that's not easy to get to. It's uphill going out and uphill coming in.
Right.
But I think there is gonna be, in the future, electric assist bikes are gonna be very popular.
Where I
And
was headed.
and so I think, you know, so the argument of being in a hilly site is not as important to me. And plus, I think people just put the bikes there and then take them out, put them on the car and ride out to the Minuteman and then go for a ride,
Right.
you know, and,
Or Bruce
So-
Freeman Rail Trail.
mhm,
I would say that you're gonna see a lot of electric bikes.
Yeah.
there because of the hills. And then the question is, are you providing any power? Does that create a fire risk? All those things that go with some of it, so. this-
well, the battery packs come off, right?
It's-
So you know, if I had my bike there, I wouldn't leave the battery pack here, that comes to the unit.
It's just clarity for the fire department when reviewing anything else.
Yeah.
The bike would create no charging here.
Sure.
Or
no charge.
scooters or any of the other stuff that
Right.
causes fires.
Right, right. So I, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is a bit on the part, so.
Okay. Continue to look
No
at that.
argument,
Mhm,
no argument.
yeah,
Yeah.
so what is a reasonable number? You know, that, you know, because that's what you want to hear from us, I think. We think it's a reasonable number, you know, as Clip Woolmer said, you know, Boston, this is not, Boston has one per unit, right? Which I think is, you know, I totally agree with him, that would be a lot. You know, this would be, you know, I don't know,
2/3?
half, I was gonna go,
So I was going half or somewhere in there. The other one I was gonna say is you have a 5-story building, so if you wanted to take it up to your room. Or up to your, you know, your elevator, that put a demand on your elevator. Anything else, I mean, if it was ground floor grade, I'd roll it into my unit, but if most of the units are up, it means going into the elevator, take them up. So
right,
just a consideration
Yeah,
that you might want more.
people do, we
Yeah.
see it all the time.
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
Yeah.
so.
Half, I think is.
Half?
Mhm.
well, that would be, if you're saying there's 27 in that room now, you'd need 4 of those plus.
Mhm. Or in the building, and that's where
Or in the
I
building
typically
complex,
seen
yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
yeah, if they wanna do an outside storage. So,
Yeah.
But it needs to be covered, it's not outside, you know, obviously, you know, especially since the winter we had, you don't wanna have your bike sitting out
Right.
there
Yeah.
all
Right,
winter.
even
Yeah.
under a
Yeah.
roof, that wouldn't be enough.
Right,
Yeah.
right, so that's where we would be,
I will, we'll go back and, take another look at that.
thank you.
Can I
Thank you.
put one counterpoint to that? You
Yeah.
are in a place where there's not a lot of places to bike to get in and out. You only got one way in and out of this place, and when you do, you end up on Main Street. So from a, you know, taking the kids out biking and stuff, it's gonna be put it on the car and drive it away from there. So, yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right, but,
it's got to go
but,
somewhere.
They've gotta go somewhere, I'm just saying.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
It's not like.
no, I
kids just
hear you,
park
that's what
around
I'm,
there.
yeah.
I would suspect that the folks that rent a garage space who also have bikes would just put their own bikes in their garage space, but I don't know. Who knows what that-
Yeah, those garage big, are they individual spaces?
They are, yes.
So it's not, okay.
Correct.
How deep are they?
Ooh.
Do you have enough room to put bikes in there? Something,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you
Oh,
put it on
yeah.
the side, you.
And that's why they've been super popular at our projects, because it reads more like a single family garage where you can park your car and have storage.
It's on,
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're 22 feet deep.
Yeah.
They're
okay, enough.
like a residential garage.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so then we'll get into just a couple quick slides, and I know this is outside of what I think the board will include in the decision, but
Mhm.
just for some context in the conversation,
Mhm.
this is a sketch that came out of the meeting on Monday with the Blackbird Association for screening. You can see the trees here
Mhm.
in front of these buildings, screening back this way. We're gonna incorporate that into, you know, a separate agreement with the association.
Wow.
And then again on Sweet Birch, where we've gone and, yeah, added, I think we're up to 10 here. But importantly, to the chair's point, you know, the note on the plan will say to be field staked by landscape architect during construction.
Good, that was a good one.
Yeah, so that any electrical architect needs to go out when it's constructed, put little irrigation flags or whatever in the ground there, and then residents can then say like, yep, that's where we like it, or they can take a flag and put it, a few feet one direction or the other, and then you go from there.
Right.
Contractor comes by and just goes, plops them in.
That's great.
And then color. So I'm gonna turn it back over to Jay and walk through some of our thoughts on a color study.
Thanks. So I heard we got a late request to look at the colors, which we did.
Sorry.
I think our goals always aligned with the goals of the board and the goals of the neighbors, and that we want colors here to be somewhat neutral. We want them to be muted. We wanted to use earth tones and not use bright colors that would call attention to it. That being said, we took another pass at it. So what you're seeing here is the previous design, where we essentially had three colors. We had two colors on the sort of field of the building, and then we had a trim color. So here we were using a blue for that kind of accent color. The main field color was this light gray, and then we had a trim color, which is just an off-white. If you go to the next slide, what we did is.
No, sorry, there you go.
Yeah, so what we did is we replaced the blue with more of a muted gray tone. And the light gray, we made a little bit darker. Thought being is that light gray, when it's in the sun, it actually reads as almost a white. So we made the overall color scheme a little bit darker than it was. So like if you're looking at it through trees, it'll actually go away more. We also made the trim color slightly darker. The previous one wasn't a bright white, but this is even more subdued to tone it down a little bit more. And then we have the other view, that's the previous. This is the previous, you'll see the blue accent color. You can also note that the mechanical equipment is visible in this view. You go to the next one. So here the mechanical is screened, and also the blue color goes away, and the overall scheme, I think, is a little bit more subdued. I do have physical samples here tonight of the colors. If you want to look at them, we can do that.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. That was my request, and that indeed came up on Monday when I was standing at the neighbors and just walking, and then, coming home to my house where I have two neighbors that I can clearly see, one in a white house and one in a brick house. And I was like, wow, there's a difference on just how you perceive those homes.
So the original scheme used that as the accent color. This was kind of the field, and this was the trim. And this, when you actually see it on a building, it gets pretty light when it's in the sun.
Can I ask on so this may just be an issue with the rendering, it actually looks like there's a reddish.
I think that's the wood one that's in there.
Yeah, so we are using, which I don't have samples of, but it's kind of a wood tone. It's the same material, but it has kind of a wood grain to it.
Okay.
And there's actually two colors of that. There's the brown and then the darker, more richer brown. And we use that in special areas. So it's on the amenity building, and it's also on the recesses of
Yeah,
the
okay.
of the
All
balcony.
right, so that's, that brown color is like a brown wood color.
Correct,
Okay.
definitively not red.
It's brown.
Yeah, it's hard on these.
And that we left unchanged. We didn't change that.
Yeah.
I
Good, that's a good
appreciate that,
change.
and the good thing also is that it's not a monoblock, right?
Correct.
It's
broken up.
It's very much broken up, and I think that would go good.
Good.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
That is all we have for presentation.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I'm remembering back to the very first meeting that we had, and I can't remember how much of this team was here then, but it was notable that the neighbors were and the team were pretty far apart, and there wasn't trust, and it sounds like Like there is a lot of trust that's been built. It sounds like you're still working, but I'm impressed to hear that you're doing an obligation, you know, that you're creating an agreement between those two parties. So that's great.
Thank you.
Good.
Just looking at the neighbor, seeing whether he wants to comment on.
Yeah,
this,
no,
but,
we'll hear all the comments, but I want to recognize that on both sides, there's been work and I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
no, that's good, and there's been communication, and
Yeah.
that's the most important part, I really appreciate that.
Mhm.
Let me just go to the public here for a second and see whether anybody has any comments, to this point. We will come back later. But I do want to give neighbors and people zooming in an opportunity to speak. I'm not seeing any hands being raised. Please go ahead.
From here.
Yeah, you can speak from there. We can hear that. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jack Dolly. I live at 24 Black Birch. I'm also the president of the Forest Ridge Road Association, which is the private road that accesses the community up there. At last week's meeting, I wasn't present at, and so I'm doing this on hearsay. I believe there was a number of comments made by the peer review consultant regarding improvements out on Forest Ridge Road, tackle strips on sidewalks, something relating to paving on Route 62. I don't know the details of that, but I guess my position is if those are mitigation items that either this board or the applicant are accepting, that they be an applicant responsibility as opposed to a Forest Ridge Community Association. And I don't know the substance of the items.
I thought we kind of decided, just as the planting came to the understanding that anything that happens on that road is off-site. And therefore, we would not take any jurisdiction over, and we would not condition, and it would be between the various parties. Correct?
Correct. Yeah, I agree with that. But I'm not sure I think specifically we should figure out what.
I heard things like sidewalk aprons, I call them tactile strips.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that, but there is a recording. Minuteman Network has a recording, full recording of this meeting, so if you have 2.5 hours to spare, that's where you want to be.
Yeah, not trying to, I'm just want to make sure that.
The applicant and I will sort it out. Okay.
Great.
All I was trying to stall was some sort of obligation that translated an economic burden on someone other than the applicant.
Good. Anything else? I do want to go through or at least
The waivers.
the waivers. I want to ask you all, have you read it? Is there any?
You had some more items on your end of your agenda. Did you have like the fire department letter and other things? Anything else?
Right, yeah, thank you.
Oh,
I
sorry.
can speak to that or.
Yep.
So, the board received a letter from the fire department. We have, as our team has spoken with the fire department since there was a walk several weeks ago where we, walked the, proposed secondary access. Then there was some discussion about that going off-site and the difficulties that may, it may pose in terms of getting permission to do so on private land and maybe even touch town land. So the fire department's follow-up letter today stated that, if that secondary access wasn't achievable, that they wanted to go back to the original boulevard plan. Now, I think in our minds anyway, there's a little bit of a discrepancy because I think there was some communication through you, Phil, on the original plan that had a certain set of dimensions. And then there were some dimensions in the letter that are different than what we've ever put on paper. So we're not exactly clear on if there was just sort of an error there or if there was an intention on the dimensions put in the letter.
18
and 18.
I'm gonna assume that's an error.
Okay, that was our assumption, but
Yes.
you know, we wanted to just put that out there that we weren't clear on that. Because the original dimensions were 18 and 16.
18 and 14.
18 and 14.
and 14.
Okay.
Um,
So, I will clarify with the fire department, but I'm going to assume that was
Yeah.
an error.
yeah, okay,
And well, you can clarify it, but I think there's a discussion still ongoing, right? With the fire
Correct.
department anyways, on getting that access and.
and then just the last item on the list was, it's already been mentioned, was the peer reviewer's email, so.
Yeah.
So I guess, my hesitation is, as the board moves forward, is whether if that secondary access is not constructed, whether the board, how the board would move forward in conditioning this would be somewhat of a split approval with the plans. You either have one set of plans that has the secondary access, or you have another set of plans with a wider main boulevard driveway. And how that goes back to the peer reviewers of the stormwater drainage and those elements. So
Given the comments of the fire department, which I did read today, are you going to be able to figure out the legalese issues within the next couple of weeks, or is it not that simple?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I mean, is the answer.
Because if that were resolved, to say that the legalese that the fire department raises, then, if those are in place, can't do it, then as I read that letter, you go back to the 1814. So you'd only have the one plan.
So I think, I believe we need to approve the 1814. And
But the letter says 18 and 18.
well, I can have
Right.
the assistant fire chief correct his letter.
Right.
yeah,
But
I'm sorry, just for clarification, Jim's asking, I'll just put it up to the board. So right now, the driveway is at 16 in and 14 out. Just for clarification, because that was based on your peer reviewer's recommendation.
Mhm.
The original one, which the fire chief or the deputy is referring to, is the 18 and 14. I know we're putting a lot of numbers out there, but I just want to be clear what these options were and the history of them.
and then I put a sketch out that was even smaller than that, right?
You did, Mr. Chair, and we presented that to the fire department during our call last week as well.
Yeah, so. I think we need to get approval on the widest, 1816, or whatever you can.
1814.
1814.
Yeah, too many numbers.
1814, and then if that goes down, all the better. Everybody wants that. But, at least it gets better, right? They don't want to approve something that and then you have to make it wider, and then you get into the stormwater, et cetera, so.
Is all the stormwater calculated right now on that dimension set?
Yes.
Okay,
It
I'm looking for
works,
consistency across all
Mhm,
documents. Stay with consistency.
Right.
Yeah.
So go worst case scenario, and then hopefully we can make
You
it
can make it
better.
better. Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be a condition crafted that looks at that. If the secondary access comes to fruition, then the condition can say, then we compel you to reduce it. Because I know the board was concerned about just the visual impact of
Mhm.
all of that.
Yeah.
And any decision will envision the submission of final plans prior to building permit, and that's when hopefully everything's resolved and there's a final answer.
Good. Since we're talking about plans and potentially changing, can you, and this is just a question for education board and the butters, et cetera, if there's any changes to the plan? What's the process?
The conditions will require submission of final plans prior to the application for a building permit. There's usually a time frame, depending on how much additional information may be contained in there. there's an opportunity for additional peer review during that time. We just have to caution that the board can't condition that the review of those plans is for subsequent approval, but it's just for consistency with what was reported at the hearings and what was envisioned within the approved plans. Many times there will be small changes as those plans evolve, but I think acceptance of those plans at that time is acceptance of the plans consistent with the approval. Subsequent to that, during construction, there is a change. And then the applicant presents that change to the board in writing. And their opinion on that change being insubstantial or substantial. They'll probably claim that every change is insubstantial. Then it's the board's decision. You have 20 days from receipt of that letter to deem the change insubstantial, and if you do, then it's approved as is without need to modify the decision. If you believe it to be substantial, then you have 30 days to open a public hearing to take up that change.
And the mechanism for determining that it's insubstantial.
The regulations have some guidance with regards to what is deemed substantial versus insubstantial, and they are pretty large. It would be a change in, from rental to for sale. It would be an increase of more than 10% of the total units.
Or decrease.
Is it increase or decrease?
I think, well, 10% change, but yeah.
10% change. So they're large. Are you gonna, if they move a catch basin, you're gonna deem that to be substantial? No. What I usually recommend to boards is you consider the change and how that item was discussed at a public hearing. Was there consultant input? Was there neighbor input? If the subject matter needs that input, then maybe you need to deem that substantial and have that change vetted. The subject matter of the public hearing would only be the change. It doesn't affect the underlying comprehensive permit but it would require that there be a modified decision. So.
And I think Jim's on has his hand up, but hang on just a second. So the insubstantial change, we get a letter from them listing that we have these items, remove this, remove that, we tweet and we get this letter. And then that comes to us as a administrative item on our agenda, or how would that?
Or a public hearing?
It's not a public hearing.
It's not a public hearing,
The board can schedule a meeting, posted 48 hours in advance to just take up that subject matter, that request.
Okay.
And again, they're gonna frame it as, please agree with us that these changes or this change is insubstantial in accordance with the regulations. And then again, if you collectively vote to deem it insubstantial, it is approved as is. There's no other action of the board other than the minutes of the meeting.
Great. Jim, go ahead.
I agree with everything Joe has said so far. I think Ian has done a bunch of those for our clients. He could probably actually recite the minor modification requirements and the regulations, but they're very broad. What I've done in a bunch of permits because you'll get a lot of things like a plan set, the final plan set as Joe is saying, will come in and it'll be part of the comprehensive permit, the listing of plans. And then you go forward and you start building and you're like, oh, this bollard is shown on the plan here. We want to move it over there because that's just how, whatever. You don't, maybe you do, but in some communities, you literally go back for or insubstantial changes for like, the door was shown here on a plan and now it's over here. And the building inspector's like, well, and so what I've done in a bunch of permits is you create an additional tranche of really minor stuff, like just basically small plan changes where you give the building inspector the ability to just look at the plans and say, yeah, that's like some minor adjustment in the field really doesn't mean anything. And he can approve it just by a letter. And then he can also say, well, I'm out of my comfort zone. I think you need to go do apply to the zoning board as a substantial or insubstantial change. And then you just go through the process. And it just, quite honestly, I just did a project. I think we did three insubstantial changes. And it was just because as everything progressed, it was like the plans got finalized, we did a change, and then it started getting built, and then they're like, oh my goodness, and they changed it again, and all of them added up to like I mean, it was like, so the board started getting tired of seeing us. So that's just a possibility of making it so that you relieve for things, and the building inspectors knows, and he knows what is just some field change that doesn't affect anything, and then he could just say, yeah, don't worry about that. And anything bigger than that, like Joe says, kind of affects something that was discussed at the hearing, then you would go through the insubstantial or substantial. And I think even depending on where the driveway ends up, I mean, my sense is probably the current best course is just to get that issue resolved with the fire department, whatever they say it is, it is. But if there's a hope that a secondary access could be achieved, and everybody thinks that you could draft a condition where it says, this is what we approve, but if it goes to this, just tell us. I mean, I don't think you need to make it any more complex than that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jim, and you just know that we will never get tired of seeing you here. That's why we've been here for a year and a half.
Be careful what you say.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, be careful what you wish for.
I do fully expect you all to be back here. I mean, that's just the nature of the game, obviously, once you go into the ground like a good year and a half from now, and between now and then stuff changes, and then in construction stuff changes, and,
right.
and that's just to be expected. So,
Joe, what you said. When I was town council, I had several projects in which a minor change was permitted by a building inspector. You didn't have to go back to the zoning board for another hearing.
And I think that's what Jim was saying.
That's what he was saying, but I want to hear Joe, because he's talking about 40B regulations, which may override that flexibility.
No, I think Jim's right. The policing of the changes is gonna be between the building inspector and planning staff, and things you have to look within the context of the regulations that give you the guidance on what is substantial and insubstantial. And I think if you review that, you're gonna see that they're really, the spirit of the regulation is a major change. And that, okay, if we're close to those thresholds, those quantities or types of changes, then yeah, it needs to come to the board. But there are gonna be a whole host of things that are so far away from that context that they can be deemed field changes that.
I mean, once you have a fault, I mean,
yeah.
Buy into that, but
No, that's a current practice
Okay,
that the
all right.
building commissioner and I have for many projects. It's, whether a field change is in substantial conformance with the approved plans. So the example of moving a bollard, some, changes to a perfect example is Concord Academy, which this board approved. One of the sidewalks that comes into a side entrance, not noticed on the plan, there's a granite step. Well, the accessible entrance is too far from that entrance, so they're adding a little paved offshoot from that, and that was found to be in substantial conformance. So there's field changes made, all the time, and that's not an issue.
Great.
An issue would be if, a change in the layout of, the parking, change in, they decided all of a sudden, the tot lot got only like this big or something got deleted. Or, the bicycle rack where it's proposed now, we want to put it in the far left corner. Well, that's not in substantial conformance.
So I mean, I wanted to bring this out so that especially the abutters, so you guys know what this process is, and especially also the abutters that, once it gets approved, they're gone and they are scot-free. It's like, no, there is still, they need to be conforming. And I also think just for an applicant's peace of mind, a little stuff happens over and they collect a list of like, remove this, remove that, nothing big, but then just in order to get sort of the record clean, they might just file that with us so that we have that and then we bless them. And then that's so that they're also not getting surprised then when it times comes for the occupancy permit, like, hey, that is not like it looks on the plan.
Good point.
So just for their clarity, I just do expect to see them back here. That's not, it's just the way stuff goes. We have all read the waivers, right? Do we have any comment? Like, we can go one by one, but I think just in general, I think, you want to go one by one?
So Joe can correct me if I'm wrong, but the board does need to make a finding for each individual waiver that's being requested.
Yes.
I don't think you can say, a blanket finding for all the waivers. You do individually have to go through each and every one of them.
And we're doing that tonight.
Yeah, let's do that, because that I think is important for writing the conditions, and this is also, because if we were not to grant waivers, that's important for them to know.
Okay.
So this is kind of a big one.
It's our last thing. So as our last thing, we'll go through each waiver.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So I can share my screen.
Okay, well, yeah, you share the screen. I'll start because I have them here. Waiver one, principal use regulations. Request a waiver to allow a multi-unit dwelling in the limited LIP number 2 zoning district. That
We know we're doing that. That seemed.
that seems pretty
no
straightforward, and we should have, if we weren't gonna allow this waiver, we should have said so a year and a half ago.
Can I move to accept it?
No, let's just.
We'll go through all of them.
Let's just go through all of them. Special permit requirements for an alternative PID. Request a waiver from the requirement for special permit to allow for an alternative PID in the LIP 2 zoning district. Any problems?
No, I mean, that's.
That's good.
Yep.
Variance requirements, paragraph 11.6, the request is for the waiver from the requirement for variance to allow a multi-unit dwelling in the LIP 2 zoning district. Same, right?
Yep.
2/3 vote at town meeting to request a waiver from the requirement of a 2/3 vote of town meeting for an alternative PRD in the LIP 2 zoning district. Same, we should have. Table 2, accessory use regulations, paragraph 5, request a waiver to allow a common driveway in the LIP 2 zoning district.
Yep.
And that's
Been over that, yeah.
is the club. No, this is when you come from
Right,
Thoreau and they join.
Yep.
And then the two of them have a joint driveway to the traffic circle, so that's, we're gonna be allowing that. Request a waiver to allow a 5-story building with a maximum height of, 57 foot 8 inches, building A, and 55 foot 6 inches, building B. And that's still
That's
the right,
what
those
we
are
hear.
still the right numbers, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yep,
Uh,
and
you know, that's,
that's what we're
Triple
expecting
check
to
that,
do.
but yes.
Yeah,
excuse me. Request a waiver to allow an increase in the maximum lot coverage as shown on the, site development plans as, approximately 41%.
Yep. Carefully considered.
That's the. Did you?
Yeah, no,
Oh.
and, yeah, I mean, so. All of these, there will be, you know, a finding that goes with them. So, you know, the previously 1 through 5, 1 through 6 are the project. I don't know the exact words, but, you know, the project would not be able to proceed, you know, without this waiver.
Yeah,
the-
this distinction here is there's process waivers and dimensional waivers. The process waivers are, you normally have to go through this process, but it's all subsumed into the comprehensive permit. And the finding there is, as Elizabeth said, pretty simple. It's subsumed into the comprehensive permit, you know, otherwise wouldn't be able to do it. The dimensional ones, it's more like a variance. You're actually saying, we're gonna waive it from 2. And I think the findings might get more specific there because they may have mitigation issues with it. So what was the mitigation for the height? The mitigation was pulling back the buildings further away from black birch and sweet birch and the screening and whatever they be. You might get more detailed.
Right, and the topography, smaller footprint and the topography of the land.
To reduce the impacts of the overall.
Yeah. I thought it was gonna be easy, but. So that was height, and then request a waiver to allow an increase in the maximum lot coverage as shown on the site development plan is approximately 41%. Lot coverage, allowable is 35. So finding or,
I think in the process, we made progress in reducing the original lot coverage, right, to. And it seems, we all feel this is as good as you can get.
Yeah.
For this project here, at 41%.
Given the amount of units that, are proposed.
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Table 3, dimensional regulations, paragraph 6. Request a waiver to allow an increase in the maximum allowable gross floor area. We don't have the numbers calculated out here, but I think that goes with, you know, one of the earlier waivers, a multifamily dwelling that education. Yeah, that.
The project's not feasible.
The project is not feasible.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and the gross floor area also was based on a use that's allowed, being a multifamily use that's not allowed and having a different use and therefore different floor area that is required. Table 3, dimensional regulations, paragraph 6, request to waive the allowed side yard that is less than the minimum allowed. Where is that on the lot? That's on the sort of.
It's on the side abutting the Thoreau Club, the garage. where the bike storage is. It's
Okay.
12.9 feet off the lot line that we're creating.
Okay, and that's the garages, right?
Yes, just the garages.
And I think that's a point that we pushed not pushed, but the applicant moved the building and all closer, further away from the neighbors, closer to the other side.
You said
Right.
12.9 feet?
12.9.
Okay.
And the numbers that correspond to these waivers are on the layout of materials plan. There's a dimensional table, just for follow-up reference as well. Where that 12.9 exists, as well as the floor to area ratio numbers, et cetera.
Table 4, minimum parking, paragraph 7.7, request a waiver to provide less than a required minimum parking. And as shown in site plan development plans depicting 380 spaces, 29 reserved parking spaces to be provided if required by the applicant to meet parking demand in the project. And that's obviously a waiver that we pushed because, that's at our
Yes,
direction.
To have less.
Parking and less hay, right?
Yep.
That's pretty straightforward.
And that number may change again slightly depending on your bike rack. Bike
Oh,
storage.
it could, depending on where we just figure out how to put that, where to put that, yeah. It won't be.
It won't be
Much.
increasing.
Yeah.
To accommodate alternate transportation.
Won't be increasing, so that's a good thing. Reserved parking spaces, paragraph 7.728, request the waiver to allow for the zoning board of appeals to authorize reserved parking spaces rather than the planning board.
Yeah.
Hereby granted,
Process waivers. Right?
yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, just, sorry, going back to number 10, I think similar with, the Novo comprehensive permit. I don't know if the board has had a conversation with the applicant about what transportation demand management measures may be, provided for the tenants.
I think that's in the,
It was in the GPI letter.
Yeah.
been covered.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that could also be added to your finding, for the waiver.
Waiver number 12, or waiver request number 12, groundwater conservancy district, paragraph 7641. That's a process waiver, right?
Correct.
Site plan review, the same thing, that's waiver request 13, that's paragraph 11.8. Is process waiver, site plan review, is part of the comprehensive permit. Section 3.4 of the subdivision rules and regulations, the request a waiver to allow for the zoning board of appeals to endorse the plan under the phrase approval under the subdivision control law not required, rather than the planning board process waiver, right?
So I did have a conversation with, town council regarding this. And, because this is similar to the board, let's say, granting a special permit for, a waiver to the dimensions for a site. And that special permit can get issued, which then gets noted on an A&R plan, which gives the planning board the ability to endorse the plan. Because, this board is issuing a comprehensive permit, which modifies the requirements for the layout of the lot. That note can be added to an A&R plan. And she did not feel that the planning board could endorse the plan, with the issuance of the comprehensive permit.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah,
it's been- been
I don't
my
think the
experience.
waiver is necessary since the
Got
board is issuing a comprehensive permit allowing the creation of this lot in the dimensions.
Great.
That are shown on the
It's just
plan.
always a little. It brings up the question when, because at some point, a Mylar will be presented to you for the subdivision plan. And there'll be a block on it that will say A&R endorsement, and this board is acting instead of the planning board has to sign that. And in the absence of that signature, it can't be recorded, so.
Yeah, for what it's worth, just for the sake of belt and suspenders, I would argue that you would grant that waiver, and I think, I mean, I've had this in other cases too. And Joe's right, that the endorsement, and I had another one where the zoning board just endorsed it. And it didn't say anything, they just endorsed it, and I was like, you know, don't you think you should have added a note? So I think that if the waiver is granted, the decision clearly says that the board's acting in lieu of the planning board, and then the actual Mylar says pursuant to chapter 40B waiver, you know, request, and then they endorse, then I think we're good. So it's just, it's like a belt and suspenders thing for me, so. I guess I'm saying
I think we're
humor
fine
me.
with, granting that waiver.
Yep.
Right. Then waiver request 15, sign by law, provide a dual face sign with approximate face dimension of 5'4" by 7 foot, which is 37.3 square foot each side, 74.6 square foot total, as shown on the site development drawings details, C506. Stone base is approximately 7 foot 5 inches by 2 foot 8 inches.
Was there concern that it was too big a sign?
Yeah, it's bigger than, hmm?
8 feet tall.
Yeah, it's bigger than what is allowed. I'm sort of, I have no issue with it. I'm just not, you know, if we need to, and I'm looking at the applicant because I'm just gonna kick this can down, a bit down the road maybe. You know, we would like to have a reasoning. Just, you know, you need to tell me why you need this waiver.
And where exactly is the sign located?
Yeah.
At the entrance to the driveway, so on the right side of the driveway as you're facing.
So as you turn in the double barrel.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not.
Typical monument sign that you'd see at an apartment development with the name and the address of the project.
And how far back from the stop line is? I don't ever remember anybody looking at whether site distance becomes an issue as you look left from Thoreau Club.
I don't know the exact distance, I can confirm it for you. But we reviewed it, with MDM and, between MDM, myself and GPI.
Okay.
We made sure it cleared the site distances. GPI was insisting to make sure we put those site distances on the layout plan, which they are. So you can see that it clears the sign as proposed, so there's no traffic related matters.
And so, and I think the reasoning for being that sign, the size it is just the scale of the surroundings, right? Plus it becomes a bit of a wayfinding sign as you are on the roundabout. You want to see which one. Where you want to go,
Yeah,
so
are you going to the apartments or are you going forward to the club?
Right, well, you do the roundabout, and this is at, right, you on the roundabout, and this is at the barrel, but, so you can see from the roundabout, and I think you want to have a certain amount of visibility of where you are.
Yep, good
But you
point.
need two sides. The other side's facing the Thoreau Club, isn't it? Specifically for a dual sign, that means twice as much coverage on two sides.
Yeah.
Because if I recall, the sign's on the Thoreau Club side, so it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not so sure that's necessary. I mean, we're looking at it now, it's angled. You really only see it from the Thoreau Club parking lot, the backside.
Right. So just a single phase sign in those dimensions as you as noted. So do you then still need this waiver or?
Yeah, it's still,
Yes.
one side
Yes.
is still only 25.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So. Waiver granted, right?
Sure.
Whatever, it's fine. Building permit fees. Acknowledge that permits for the project are assigned by those fees in effect at the time the comprehensive permit application was made and not subject to any increases.
I'm not sure the board has the
Jurisdiction.
ability or
Jurisdiction.
jurisdiction to do that
Excellent point.
waiver.
16.
Yes.
Yep. Oh,
I mean, we
Good
can, we
point.
can follow up, you can skip that waiver for tonight, but I do not believe the board has that ability.
It's a local regulation.
Caps,
Yeah, it just, I guess it just restates it restates essentially what the comprehensive permit regulations say, that any fees, the day we apply are the fees. Any fees changed after the day we apply are not the fees.
But these are, right, but those are, I believe those are all based on application fees. These are building permit fees that are due at the time of application for a building permit under the building code.
Right, but I guess the
I
question
think
is,
we
if
need-
we came in, it was
Yeah.
it was
I
a
think the board
dollar.
needs the board needs clarification, and we also need to know, for context, have the building permit fees changed? What were they and what are they? And what are we talking about? Because the building permit fees have purpose. They're for the building department to do their job, which is in enforcing the building code. So it's really, I can see it as being distinct and separate from this process.
Well,
So
I would.
I think we need
Yeah,
clarification.
so we're gonna be punting on this for tonight on this waiver, I think. Who's gonna be following up with whom?
I will submit a request to town council regarding the waiver.
Yeah.
So I would just say that if, in an extreme example, the day we apply for our comprehensive permit, it's $1 a thousand or something, and then midway through, they decide that it's gonna be $10 per thousand. That is akin to, Joe, you probably remember the discussion in Waltham over the I&I requirement, where it went from, I think as it applied to our project, like Jim Lambert might remember as well, it was like $160,000 to like $270,000 because they just changed the fee on us. So that's the point, but I guess we might as well find out.
If the building permits change, they change for everybody, they would not.
So the
change for
I&I fees, do the same thing.
Yeah, but the I&I fees are normally, or building permit fees are, they go into effect when those applications are made, so. We just have to, we'd have to find out. I don't know. I'm speculating, so I think input from town council is important.
Fair enough.
So we'll follow up. Article 23, town meeting, April 2023, request a waiver to allow for a variety of energy options to support the on-site gas grills, pool heaters, and generators required to maintain electrical system. This one, I think we needs a little bit more detail to only allow for or to allow for variety of energy options only to support the on-site gas grills, pool heaters, and generators, and nothing else. I do want to have this narrow
And variety is a big word.
I think you can also follow this up with a condition. That memorializes what the applicant has committed to with regards to, you know, only needing gas for, so.
Yeah.
Non-housing use.
Right,
Ample
right.
use.
Yeah, no, I know that this has been a very important question for the town as a whole, and I just want to make sure that this is gets as clean as possible. And then we have Concord Public Works Design and Construction Standard and Details, and I think this so waiver to allow for modification of standard details for construction aspects as shown on the site development drawings, including pavement, sidewalk, stormwater structure, and pipe materials, as the project will remain private in perpetuity and no maintenance obligation of the Concord Department of Public Works shall be necessary. However, all water systems shall be constructed in accordance with DPD requirements and electrical systems with the Concord Municipal Light Plan. So I think this is also an easy waiver to grant because, well, some of the standards they will follow anyways. And the other waivers are indeed, it's their private property. So they can pretty much do what they want as long as it gets stamped by a professional engineer, because that's the responsibility. So you know that it's being constructed to reasonable, appropriate engineering standards, right?
I think we'll also have some conditions from engineering peer review that are kind of follow this waiver thing, right?
Yeah. No, so I have no problem with this waiver as well. So I think I don't know whether we need a motion or we don't, but as this
That gives me what I need to start drafting.
okay, and that is clear for the applicant as well. Still making it a long meeting here. Is there anything else on the agenda tonight?
They had the administrative for minutes.
Yeah, but on this, you guys have everything addressed. Let me go to the public. If there's anybody from the public that has anything to contribute. Seeing no hands raised. Good thing. Well, I will take a motion to continue this hearing to April the 3rd. At what time?
Yeah, we just have one application for April 3rd, so anytime after 7.
Well, 7:05. 7:05.
Good. I move that we continue this hearing to 7:05 PM on April 3rd.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Getting here. Getting there. Made some good progress again.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks,
Yep,
Jim.
thanks.
Thank you.
I'm gonna try to get there for the 3rd, so we'll see.
I hope you can, without crutches.
It will be with crutches, but it'll hopefully be more ambulatory. So, thank you. Talk to you.
Thank you.
The minutes are
Yeah.
lovely.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Hey, thanks. Take care.
Lovely, thank you.
So,
They are thorough.
Oh, we're trying. There's a lot going on.
Sometimes I travel light.
Extra meetings for this board, extra meetings for the historical commission. and
God, sorry, what's the phone?
So but thank you.
Very good. So I would move to
9,
accept
2,
the
3,
minutes for
1,
April,
0, 1,
sorry, October 30th, 2024, November 14th, 2024, December 5th, 2024, and December 12th. 2024.
And
you-
January 9th, sorry,
I'm
and
not
January.
sure.
I'm sorry, Phil.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah,
were-
right. No,
All
no,
in favor?
no. Okay,
Aye.
thank you.
I second. That was it for tonight. Thank
Good.
you all. Meeting adjourned.